Alright, let's talk about last night in the NBA for a bit. Unfortunately, I cannot do a full-blown thing about every single game because there were like 13 games played or something. Also, real quick, after seeing a bunch of takes yesterday about the Sixers offense, it made me question if I was perhaps a little too nice about their offense in game one, mainly around like the spacing when it came to Embiid's post-ups and that making it easier for the Celtics to swarm him, so that was my bad. Anyway, let's start with Pelicans Nets. The Pelicans look good. Zion, he looks like Zion, man. He's got multiple baskets in this game where it seems like he's almost gliding to the basket. You know, it's like he's taken Ben Simmons in a one-on-one because Ben is giving him space, and in like one or two dribbles, he closes the space and then he just bumps him a little bit. And the way that he can just stop as quickly as he does, given his size, and then just have this like acrobatic finish, like it's just nuts. But this is Zion. His first bucket of the game, Valanciunas screened for him, and then the Nets switched, so it's Nick Claxton on him, and Zion just kind of went through him. Now, he did miss the shot, but then he gets an offensive rebound with Simmons and Claxton still in the area, and he does all this in, like, I don't know, 1 second. Like, the guy's just an anomaly as an athlete. And I mentioned Valanciunas there. Man, Valanciunas, he grabbed a million offensive rebounds in this game, and, between Nick Claxton, Kevin Durant, Day'Ron Sharp, they had a tough time physically dealing with Valanciunas on the boards. And that's the thing. Like, Brandon Ingram, he had these plays where, like, he'll cut from one side of the paint to the other, then he can get a post up, and then he can go to work on, a lot of the time he was taking, like, turnarounds or just size up mid-rangers in this game. He was making them. And then you've got Zion just being a bully to the basket at all times. And then you got to deal with Valanciunas, who's grabbing a bunch of offensive rebounds. It's like, this offense can be, like, really devastating. And the toughest part about it, too, is because if you're going to switch certain actions to take things away from these guys, it's going to give somebody like a Valanciunas a size mismatch to where he can go to work on the boards. And they're already doing some little things to play off each other. Like one of Zion's buckets, it started as a fake handoff to Brandon Ingram, where Ingram was already starting from the corner and getting moving. So that's putting your defense already in movement. And the Nets were thinking about making the switch, so Ben Simmons was off balance a little bit, and then Zion just attacked. I think their spacing's kind of interesting too. Like you'll have Ingram on kind of like the elbow or even a little bit to the baseline. Zion will be at the top of the key. And you might think, oh, let me help off of Zion because we can stop him before he just gets ahead of steam to the rim. Now you really can't do it. And at the same time, Valanciunas is on like the opposite dunker spot. And you'd think what could be just a bunch of bodies running into each other. No, it's actually like Zion's in the perfect spot to throw it to Valanciunas if you want to help. As for their defense, well, Herb blocked a Kevin Durant three, so that's nice. Valanciunas was also not in like a super drop. Like he was actually playing higher up on screen sometimes on KD, which actually did result in a few turnovers for the Nets. And now I can focus on the Nets for a little bit. And the biggest takeaway from this one to me was just they were just overwhelmed physically with Valanciunas and Zion. And Royce O'Neal was on Ingram most of the time, and Royce O'Neal did the best he could, but he's just simply not big enough to bother Brandon Ingram. I mean, he gets a screen from Valanciunas. You got Day'Ron Sharp dropping. Royce O'Neal's doing the best he can, but it's just a comfortable pull-up for Ingram pretty much. So that's the biggest thing for the Nets after this one. But to get to their offense, Kyrie missed a few pull-ups. They can tell themselves that it's fine. That's not going to happen every game. Ben Simmons had 4 points. He shot the ball 3 times. And I feel like I'm just going to do this the whole season. Ben, you got to score more than 4 points, man. I mean, I need some sort of something that shows that we are trying to get Ben to the basket, going downhill, and we can appreciate the screen setting, and obviously, there's hope that you can get that out of that sometimes. He did have a few screens in this game, as in he was the ball handler, and he was getting a screen from, let's say, Claxton or Day'Ron Sharp or whatever. The Pelicans were dropping on those. That just kind of killed the momentum of those plays. Look, man, my fear was that Ben Simmons would just kind of float around in the Nets offense, and he'll set like an on-ball screen that doesn't totally go anywhere. He'll set a couple down screens, and then that's just kind of it. And that's what happened in this game, and it's happened in not every single preseason game. Like, I think there were little signs of things happening, but overall, my fears are coming true with this so far. It's very early. It's the first game of the season. I get it, but, like, I just wanted more of an emphasis of, like, okay, Ben, we're trying to get you going downhill. I remember there was the one game where they ran like an action at the half court for him to set a screen and let him go. And I mean, some of this is still on Ben. I get it. Like he can't just have his hand held the entire time, but there's got to be moments where it's just like you see an opening and you take it. I mean, like, this is just basic basketball stuff here. The other thing I will say about Ben screening for guys is when he's playing with a center, typically Claxton in this game, and Claxton is chilling around the basket, it does make it a little tougher for those openings to be there for Ben. So I think for the Nets, that'll be a challenge. And how can you have the spacing just right to where he can dive to the rim and you can also have another big guy out there? Unless you want to run him at center. I mean, that was a little bit of a rumor this year. I think for some spot minutes here and there, yeah, but like I don't know if Ben Simmons has got 20 minutes a game at center in him, you know? That's a tough physical job. Anyway, as for the other game that I really dove in on, I had to watch the Wolves Thunder, man. I had to be the nerd. I had to watch Towns and Gobert. And OKC made them sweat quite a bit. So the first half was the potential of what this Wolves team can be. And the second half was a sign that Rudy gives this team a stability that I think they were missing at times, even as they were good last year. And first, defensively, as we would expect, Gobert was guarding, quote-unquote guarding, Kenrich Williams, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, like guys that he doesn't have to stick to like that. OKC did have a couple minutes where Mike Muscala was out there and Gobert had to guard him. And I was like, that's a little interesting, but it only lasted a couple minutes. But yeah, and then as that's happening, Towns is on the perimeter. When Towns is involved in a screen action, he's maybe not super trapping, but he's basically going to be at the level of the screen. You got Rudy waiting on the back line. That's what we all envisioned, right? And of course, they also had a decent amount of minutes where only one of them was in the game. And there were a number of plays, as there were all the time in Utah, where Gobert simply existing around the basket results in someone in OKC like tossing up a floater or just passing the ball out and having to reset the offense. And it's all the Gobert things. It's why they traded for him. Anyway, let's get to the Cat to Gobert assists, because there were quite a few, mainly in the first half, and they were pretty nice. And then I can talk a little bit about where Gobert and Cat were standing in relation to each other for things. So the first one, Gobert screens for Edwards, dives to the basket, as he does, as Towns is on the opposite wing. Edwards kicks it to Towns. He takes 2 dribbles in. He hits Gobert for a lob on the dive. That's just cool stuff, man. Another one, they get it to Cat really early in a possession on the post as Gobert is still coming up the court. He starts to go into a sprint. Cat finds him on the move. He got a layup out of it. And then there was one more where Edwards throws it to Towns, and then Towns immediately goes off the catch. And it kind of looks like it's going to be another action between them, so it freezes Lou Dort and Poku for a second. And then Gobert, dunker spot, 2 dribbles in, lob it to him again. There was also another play where the high-low was there, where Gobert had position in the post against his guy, and Towns was at the top of the key. Edwards had the ball, and Gobert was like screaming at Edwards, like, throw it to Cat so he can throw it to me. And Edwards did not see it. And then as far as like Towns post-ups, well, to be honest, when Gobert was out there, Towns didn't post up that much. I mean, he was on the elbow, but like kind of like high elbow for the sake of like cutters and stuff, but for the sake of going to work, it wasn't really the case. With that said, Cat, he had that something that made him lose a lot of weight, like right before the season began. So maybe getting physical in the post is not the best move for him right now. But when Gobert was screening for D'Lo or Edwards, Towns was most of the time in the corner. And as far as how OKC was guarding those, because that's important, in the Nets game in the preseason, they were switching a lot of those actions, and it did slow down a lot of what the T-Wolves wanted to do, which is, get Gobert on the rolls, right? Well, in this game, OKC was dropping a little bit more, especially on the D'Lo actions, and D'Lo was able to get himself a few floaters, a couple layups, one that he missed, but the look on it was pretty good. Anyway, why did they almost lose this? Well, for one, because SGA is really good. Whether it's him basically just taking Edwards off the dribble and finishing through damn near the entire Wolves team at the basket, or him attacking Taurean Prince after getting a screen from Pokusevski, but also on the Wolves side of it, as the Thunder went on a 27-5 run, I think the shot selection started to slip a little bit for him. It was like Edwards taking a deep pull-up 2, coming around a Rudy screen. Towns took a quick 3 after he and Gobert attempted to run a pick and roll with each other, which they actually did in the fourth quarter, which resulted in Towns kicking it to Jaden McDaniels in the corner, and then I think the Thunder closed out on it, but they tried it in the third quarter, and Towns just kind of shot a quick 3 on it. It did not go in. But OKC also did some things where like they were doubling Towns a little more aggressively, and it just overwhelmed him a bit. And then Gobert came in the last like 4 minutes, and everything just got under control a little bit more, mainly through him grabbing some offensive rebounds, protecting the basket, and before you know it, they end up winning the game, and it looked like it was going to fall apart for him. That is the Rudy Gobert effect. And that is why I think they're going to be one of the top teams in the West, at least in the regular season. Playoff-wise, I think Warriors, Nuggets, Clippers, those are my top three, but they got there. As far as some other things, so those were the two games I really watched like that. And then I do want to talk about Banchero's debut. I know a lot of stuff happened. I'll catch up on more of it today. It's a lot, man. There's damn near the entire league played last night. My favorite little Banchero play from last night was Wendell threw it to him, set him a screen. Jalen Suggs sets him a second screen. He gets Cade on him. He immediately puts him in the post. He does this insert really good post player-esque spin move on him, gets to the baseline and under the basket in half a second, and then he draws a foul on him. And it's like, hey, you know what, man? After 10 years since Dwight Howard was traded, and between Victor Oladipo, who ended up being really good, but they traded him beforehand, and Mario Hezonja and Mo Bamba and the Aaron Gordon, Vooch team and the Evan Fournier being a thing on that team, this might be it. They might have finally done it. Also, the sequence he had where he blocked Killian Hayes and then came down and kicked it to Hampton for three, that was pretty nutty. Jalen Suggs was 4 for 6 from outside. I say all this while the Pistons won the game with Jalen Duren dunking on Bol as they trapped Cade on a screen, and Jaden Ivey in the middle of chaos almost jumps just straight up over Jalen Suggs to get a bucket. Ivey had a pretty efficient game. He had one play where they ran the stagger screen for him. Wendell's dropping. He had an acrobatic layup. It's yep, that's the Jaden Ivey thing right there.